Okay then, time to get our hands a little dirty doing some vinyl ripping to Audacity. A little bit of prep work is required, or at least it's a better idea. You'll notice I've got the Windows Explorer open, and I've got several directories to choose from. In each of those directories is a bunch of artists and albums. I want to, at this point, rip a new addition to the collection, Harvest by Matrix. And I know I've got some Matrix material in here, so I'll scroll down, and there she blows. I have one album called Wizard. I need to make a new directory for the new album, so right click, new folder. We'll call this one Harvest. And at this point, we're pretty much done with the Explorer. Ready to go into Audacity. I've already got that open. Alrighty then, the platter's been cleaned and queued up. I've hit the little red button, and we're currently recording a full side of the vinyl into Audacity. It's easier that way than playing around trying to get them one track at a time. Main thing I'm doing here is keeping an eye on the sound levels. We're all green, which is good. If you crank it up a little bit more on the input levels, you'll start seeing yellow. Yellow isn't necessarily bad, but it indicates that you may see some clipping, and it's red, and red is always bad. At that point, you'd probably want to stop the recording and go over here to the recording volume slider and turn it down a bit. If your levels aren't quite where you want to see them based on experience, you can turn it up and try it again. That's just something you play it by ear the first few times. Okay, that's just about the end of this side. At this point, we just hit the stop button. Typical VCR type controls. And that's pretty much it. A lot of people will try and save the raw file, and it's not really necessary, because Audacity is going to save that automatically to a temp file. Once again, VCR type controls right now are at the end of the file. Click this button here and puts us at the beginning of the file. And it's time to do a little bit of minor cleanup over here. You can adjust the view to where you get a better idea what's going on. This little clicky thingy over here is a needle drop. You really want to get rid of that. Just select that entire area, hit your delete key, poof, it's gone. Let's go back to the end over here. If you had not been on top of things and you had a bunch of extra run out here, you would have seen something similar to the needle drop at the end. That would have been the needle pickup and the record transport shutting down. Okay then, first thing we'll want to do is we're going to go into File and Edit Metadata. You'll notice this one's already set up for the last rip I was playing around with. In this case, we're going to update all this. Our artist name is Matrix. Track title we're not going to worry about right now. We're just going to blank that because that will change with every track. Album title, in this case we are going with Harvest because cleverly enough that's the name of the album. Track number, we'll blank that because Audacity will automatically fill that in too. The year is 1987, and this is jazz, or we could call it prog jazz, or any one of 100 different jazz types. And I use the comments just to denote it as a rip. Okay, and at this point we're going to set default. What happens now is anything that's in these fields is going to automatically be appended to all of the tracks that we're going to eventually save at the end of this process. Hit OK. And time to assign track labels and to break down the whole thing over here into individual tracks. A lot of different ways to do that. Well, what I like to do is, first of all, find a break. This looks suspiciously like a break. Click in close to it, hit the play button. Hey, not a bad guess. Let's zoom in over here. Now that we found our break, we zoom out enough to be able to see the dead space between two tracks. You can see this one's starting to pick up again. Jazz, pretty quiet on the intake sometimes. Pick what looks like a reasonable spot to split the tracks and go to tracks, add label selection, and it's going to title this one Pony. We're good there. One thing you don't want to forget, let's go right all the way back to the beginning, is label track 1. You click all the way to the head end of the file after you've trimmed off whatever you don't want to see. Tracks, add label selection again, and this will be El Tigre. If you don't fill that in, it's going to throw everything else off. Let's go scrolling through again. There's our track 2. And is that track 3? Let's try playing that back and see what happens. You can zoom in and out as much as you want just to see what's going on. And yes, that is a track break. Let's stop over here. Get close to where we want to be. Zoom out enough to be able to see the break clearly. That's a pretty good guess too. I've got a decent amount of lead out and I got a decent amount of lead in before the next track starts. We're going to want to do a track. Add label here. This one is called Harvest. And that's track 3 on this side. Now, fortunately, this is an easy one. There's only 3 tracks on the entire side of the album. So we're pretty much done. We've adjusted cleaned up the lead in, the lead out. We've got our track titles over here. And we're done. Not quite. Last part of the process over here is we're going to go to File, Export Multiple. We'll get our pop-up over here for the folder that we want to park these new titles in. If you remember right, we created that in the Windows Explorer earlier. So we'll go to Choose, Album Rips, in Matrix, Harvest. It's a clean, shiny new folder, which is the one that we created, and that's where we want to put them. Select that, and it fills in over here. As mentioned earlier, I like to use FLAC. Don't worry about level. All that does is adjust the speed of the rip. I like to go with 24-bit depth because it gives you a little bit more head space for playback and lets the DSP have a little more room to play. We'll want to leave this alone. We're splitting the files based on the labels. We don't have to worry about including audio before the first label because if you'll remember right, we actually put a label at the beginning of the rip. Overwrite existing files, leave that checked off by default, and the naming convention uses the label and the track names that we added. We'll hit export. But wait, there's more. If you'll notice here, earlier we set the metadata. All of that's automatically filled in. The track title is filled in based on what we put in for a label for track 1, which is also automatically filled in. We hit OK. And I've got low screen resolution, which is why the OK button is hiding. Track 2, same thing. All the metadata is there. It uses the label for track 2, calls it track 2. Hit OK. You'll see one of these pop-ups for every track that you defined with a label in the last part of the process. Okay, we got harvest track 3, and at this point, that's all of the tracks that we created by adding labels. So we'll hit OK, and we're going to be exporting the entire project. It'll go through and save each one. You'll see the file name for the track. And we'll speed this up over here. Every little breeze seems to whisper Louise. Oh, I got a motorboat jack on. I'm on a Mexican radio.
I'm on a Mexican radio.
And at this point, we're being told it's done. Let's go and double check that folder we created in Windows, which you'll never really have to see again. We'll double click on that, and by golly, we've got 3 files in there. And track 1, 2, 3. Success. And that's pretty much it for Audacity. At this point, we just go through and we'll close this without saving, because this is just the temp file that we were using to create the tracks. And we're ready for the next project. Purist alert, purist alert. Run, don't walk for the nearest exit. You might want to skip this part. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of Audacity's effects and filters. They've got a boatload of the things available, and you can play around with them if you want. It's best to avoid any post-processing if you can, but a couple that I will always apply when doing vinyl rips is click removal, which is pretty straightforward. It gets rid of all the pops and clicks. This one is pretty clean because it's pretty much virgin vinyl. But I'll apply it anyway because it can't hurt. Use the very conservative Audacity default settings. Click OK. It'll apply the process. And we'll skip ahead a little bit over here. Once that's done, I'll go through and I'll hit the effects button again and hit normalize. All that does is it adjusts the track volume to basically what is normal for most audio material. And you'll notice when it's done, the volume will change on the tracks. And we'll skip ahead. In this case, there wasn't that much of a change, but sometimes you'll see a significant bump up or bump down. I've gone ahead and done the rip on the second side of the album. Best to just do the whole thing at one time. I've gone through and applied labels for the 3 tracks on this one, and including the one right up at the top. When we do the file, edit metadata, you'll notice it's already still got everything in there from doing side 1. We don't have to change that, so we'll cancel this. And when we do the file export multiple to save all of the tracks to FLAC, the only difference here, we've already got the folder selected, nothing else changes. Hit export. And here you'll need to remember it's filled in the name of the first track from side 2, which, if you'll remember, side 1 had 3 tracks. So side 1 here, the first track on side 1 or side 2, did I confuse you enough there? Will be track number 4 on the album. Okay, at this, we're ready to click OK. And same thing here, track 2 becomes track 5. And who said math would never do you any good once you got out of college? Track 3 becomes track 6. And hit OK. And we're going to export the entire project, which will be the 3 named tracks on side 2. Hit OK. File close without saving. And Audacity is closed, and we're done with it. One quick peek at the Windows Explorer, and at this point we have 6 files. They're in alphabetical order, but we'll see that they'll arrange by track number once we get into jRiver.